Hello. Hi everyone. Welcome to Selenium Python training program. Today we are going to discuss about overview on find elements. See guys, we know what exactly a find element means. So what is a find element? It will identify it will identify an object in the browser, right? With the specified property. Whatever the property you have specified, it will try to identify that particular object in a browser. Whereas find elements, see the only difference out over here is plural s. So it means it will identify multiple objects in a browser. Okay, that's the same thing, guys. So here find element will identify only one object, whereas this find elements is the one which will be identifying multiple objects in a browser. Whatever the identification mechanism we have, like find element by id, class name, css selector, all the options we have for the find elements also. Okay, so whenever we use driver dot find elements, then it will try to identify multiple objects in the browser. And definitely we need to give an identification mechanism for that. So find elements, see here driver dot find elements by dot id equal to 123. Assume that. So in this situation what it will happen means it will identify it will identify all the objects in the browser which are having an id property as a 123. That's fine. Immediately, a quick question will rise in our mind. If there are no objects with that property, what it will happen? Right? If there are no objects with this particular property, it won't throw any exception. It won't capture anything. That's it. Okay. If there are values, it will capture the values. If there are no values, it won't capture any values into that. Okay, here I have a given id as an example. Depending on your application, depending on your object, we can use this particular identification mechanism. I can use either id, class name, css selector, xpath, link text, partial link text, any one of these things I can specify here. Okay, any one of these things I can specify here. That's fine. So what I'm going to do right now is, let us use this find elements command and create a scenario. So scenario is identify all the objects in the bing.com home page. Okay, bing.com home page, which are starting with the tag name as a. See here. So this is what my scenario is. I need to identify all the objects in a web page which are having a tag name as a in a bing.com. So the various steps are: open the application and the browser. This is going to be one and the same. After that, we no need to use any commands in our scripts, as our objective is very clear, which is we need to get all objects which are starting with tag name as a. So directly I no need to do anything. So directly I can go to my scripts, driver dot find elements by dot tag name as a. That's it. I can capture that particular information. Okay, let me create a program for this scenario and see how this is going to work. So go back to my editor, and I'm creating a new script. I'm just copying an existing program and creating a new script. And in this 10th program, so this is having a different sets of commands. I'm just deleting all these commands, and my requirement is a bing.com. Hence, I'm just changing this URL to bing.com. That's it. And after that, we need to use find elements. See here, all these things are a find element. If you scroll down, you do have a find elements also. elements and by tag name, and the tag name which you want to give is a, and the list output I'm storing it in a P1. Okay, so whenever we are using find elements, the output will be collection of multiple ob- collection of multiple objects. Okay, so we can use a for loop to print all the values. Okay, we can use a simple for loop in order to print all the values. If you remember the previous scenario, whatever we have created, even we use the options method, and using that particular options, it's capturing the collection of multiple values. Right, the same thing, the same for loop I'm using. So what I'm doing means directly copy that previous program for loop and paste it here. So I haven't changed anything, guys. Directly I copied my previous program for loop and I pasted it out over here, and I'm trying to print this P2. Okay, let me run my test script, run as a demo 10. See, whenever I'm executing my test script this time, let us see here, it should print the stuff. See, it's trying to print and it got a printed nothing. Okay, so there is a small issue which we have created. So guys, if you clearly observe, what we are trying to do right now is we are just using an attribute as a value. But in this situation, we are not supposed to get the value. We need to get text from all the links. So in order to get the text from all the links, the only thing is P1 of elements. Okay, P1 of elements dot text. This method, from the P1, whichever the index is there, select that object and get the text from that. So I'm just using print this one now. P1 of a element dot get text. Whenever, how this is going to work means basically this will rotate the for loop on all the values present in P1, on all the values present in a P1. Initially, it will start from zero index from element onwards. Okay, zero index in the element onwards. Okay, that's fine. So what I'm going to do right now, let me try to run my script and see what it is printing this time. So it's getting executed on a browser, and let us see whether something is printing here or not. Okay, see here, an error message out over here is list indexes must be an integer or slices, not web elements. Okay, so something we are getting a different issue here. P1 of a element dot text is a method which we have used and it is not printing anything. Okay, so let us see. So whether it got printed anything, it doesn't printed anything. So it's having an issue with this print itself. P1 of a element dot text. Okay, so here what I want to do, P1 dot element dot, let us see all the objects or all the operations. Find elements, we have a find elements. So whenever we used a dot, it's getting all the commands. So get attribute, which will be getting the specific attribute for that particular object. Earlier we have okay, in the previous example we have a value property, hence we used a get attribute of a value. In this situation we don't have that, so we need to get the text. So let us see all the options whatever we have. Not, so we do have a text command, right? Text commands, I think this is the same thing, right? Run as a gem. Let me see what it is printing. It should print the values, but it's not printing anything. List indices must be integer or slices, not web element. List. This is a list. Okay, so I guess it's having an issue by passing this value. Okay, by passing this value. So what I will do means instead of this p1, range of length of, okay, length of a p1. Let me see this one. So this is going to be the range and it's going to be the length of p1. Let us see whether it is working in this situation or not. See here, this time it is printing all the values. So we need to change the for loop. So here in a for loop, earlier we used a P1. It was not the case basically. We need to specify how many times it needs to rotate. And here, length of a list is returning total number of values in the list. Okay, length of a list is returning the total number of values present in a list. See, all the link text got retrieved and it got printed to the console, the complete link text. So here what additionally I am doing means, if you remember guys, when we are studying the checkboxes, we discussed about is selected, right? Is selected, and we have is displayed also, which will check whether the object is displayed in the browser or not. Okay, which will check whether the object is displayed or not. So here what I am doing means, if p1 of a element, which is a web element, dot is displayed, which is a method which we are using to check whether that object is displayed or not. Whenever that object is displayed, then print the text. Okay, then print the text. Okay, let me run my script again and see what it is printing. Run as a demo 7. So almost it will get the similar output. The only difference is the number of values which it is returning will be reduced in this case. That's it. Number of values which is returning will be reduced in this case. That's it. This is the way. How can we use a find elements a command, and how can we get all the values, and how can we print those values to the Python console? Okay, this is the scenario. So we have successfully executed it and we printed all the values to the console. And now what I'm going to do now, here in this situation, length of a list is the method which is returning the total number of values in the list. So here, print length of length of p1. Okay, length of p1. When I run my test script as a Java application or a Python script, this time I need to see the total number of values here. The first thing, it's going to be 59. There are 59 objects are there in a web page which are starting with a tag name as a. Good enough. Now if you observe the find elements here, I have a given a point. If there are no objects with that property, it won't capture anything. See, my name is Surendra, right? See, I have entered the property as a Surendra. So I am asking my WebDriver to identify all the objects in a browser which are having a tag name Surendra. Definitely it will be 0. Now, when I run my test script this time, what it will happen means, let us see what the length it is returning to the console. As per my command syntax, it was supposed to return 0. See, it got a returned 0 to the console. Okay, it got returned 0 to the console, stating that there are no objects with the given property. Okay, there are no objects with the given property. The main advantage with respect to these find elements is, if there are no objects, just it will return size or count as a 0. Whereas when we are using find elements, and if the object is not there, then it will throw no such element exception. Okay, and moreover, when we use a find element, the output we can store it in a web element, whereas when we are using a find element, we can store it in a collection of multiple values. We can store it in a collection of multiple values. This is a basic difference between a find and as well as find element and as well as find elements, guys. Okay, so this is a basic scenario of this find elements. Cool. We'll continue the topic in the next session. Thank you.